This also is proven about Judah being in mourning and taken captive in the book of Jeremiah, chapter 14 and verse 2, which reads, quote, Judah mourneth, Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. End of quote. Now the term, quote, Jerusalem is gone up, end of quote, that is read here in Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 2, confirms without a shadow of a doubt that the noun, quote, Judah, end of quote, that created the English's noun, quote, Jew, end of quote, is a black tribe of slaves from Jerusalem that went up to the north into Egypt the second time. That is according to Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68, as they were captured down in Judea in the south. And they are a black-skinned tribe of African people that they called, quote, Negroes, end of quote, to this very day. Negro, Espanol. This also is proven about Judah being taken captive and coming from the south as slaves of Africa, of Judea. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 13, verse 19. That's Jeremiah chapter 13 and verse 19. And that reads, quote, the cities of the south, the cities of the south shall be shut up, and none shall open them. Judah shall be carried away captive, all of it. It shall be wholly carried away captive. End of quote. Now this passage settles all doubt and answers all questions about who it truly was and still is that are recorded in the archives as the, quote, true Jews, end of quote, that are the victims of today's spiritual Holocaust. That's the spiritual Holocaust, which is defined as, quote, a religious sacrifice that is totally consumed by way of a complete consumption by the devil's fire, especially of a large number of human beings, end of quote. In the meantime, as we go back now to Micah chapter 1 and verse 8, that read, in part, just to reiterate, quote, I will go stripped and naked, end of quote. Now, the transitive verb, quote, stripped, end of quote, which is found here in this passage, is a verb that has been misconstrued by false biblicists, false clergies, and false prophets of the entire world for hundreds of years. Insomuch until those false clergies and prophets and biblicists of the world, they all thought that Micah's physical body was going to become stripped of all his clothes, and he was going to be seen one day in the streets of the Middle East, in Jerusalem, or, quote, Morsheth Gath, end of quote, walking around butt naked with no clothes on. Oh, how foolish that is. Truly is foolish. I truly do not know how they can interpret or how they could have interpreted this while they are all sitting in total darkness. That's the results of Yahweh's spirit of deep sleep. Still have a veil over their minds. That's according to Isaiah chapter 29, verses 10 through 18. And the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 14. According to the Encarta Online Computer Dictionary, this particular word stripped is defined as, quote, to take status or possessions away from somebody, end of quote. It didn't say anything about stripping clothes off of somebody. Furthermore, and according to the original Hebraic word that Micah used, is known as, in your reference of the Strong's Concordance, under reference H7758, the Hebrew characters from right to left, Sheen, Wav, Lamet, Lamet, pronounced Sholal, Sholal, which means, quote, a prisoner, a captive, end of quote. That's just stripped. Micah was stripped into captivity as a prisoner, and his name went with him in captivity. In fact, that Hebraic word, sholal, proves, and in retrospect to Micah chapter 1, verse 8, that Micah prophesied that he would go as a prisoner with Judah and will also become a captive with Judah as well. That wherever Judah is in the last day, that is where the soul of Micah will be, in that same land. And they all will be sealed by Daniel to become part of the fulfillment of, quote, the third seal, end of quote, when it is loosed by the Son, Yahweh. Nevertheless, when, quote, Micah, end of quote, was captured and metaphorically, quote, stripped, end of quote, so was his celestial name that was, quote, literally stripped, end of quote, which was and is a celestial name that means in its interpretation, quote, who is like Yahweh, end of quote.